Pioneer. Jerry, do you want to talk about the Rice and Applegate facilities?
So what our contractors have identified to date, and what we're looking at is design of sped classrooms and those needs, cost estimates, timelines upcoming, and just a variety of things on these sites. What I should say, for all the middle school conversion sites, we're also looking at the bond work that we would be doing and trying to align it while we're working on these in terms of lead paint or turning the water back on, those kind of things too. So if they haven't already fallen into that time frame, we are shifting that so we can try to get this body of work done at the same time, which also gets into some of the securities and cameras and some of those things.
If I could invite up Principal Mike Frambos to come down to talk about the engagement. La Framboise. La Framboise. A little French.
Good evening, Superintendent and the board. Thank you for having us. Pretty much, Jerry covered the top of things. I'll let Mr. Burns introduce himself.
Hello, board. My name is Chris Burns, the Assistant Principal of Pioneer Program. Thanks for having me. The next steps moving forward is we have a community meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, the 21st, to engage families in the Pioneer community and conversations moving forward. We are setting up staff tours at Applegate and Rice, and then in late February, early March, we'll be moving forward with parent and student tours in March and early April.
Some of our staff have toured Applegate and Rice to complete a list of things that we thought we needed to get going. And we've made that list, and they're being worked on right now, I think, as you heard, as far as quotes and bids. Senior Director Mary Pearson attended our staff meeting Tuesday before last to answer staff's questions, and Human Resources will be coming out to answer staff's questions in the next couple of weeks. We met with Library Services to talk about how we can have a library at Applegate, which already has space for a library, and a library pretty much set up. We just move our books over to there. And then we're working on how we can provide library services at Rice with robust classroom libraries in place, but then also a mobile library which would have connections to the PPS library system, but how that would be available to people. We're looking at adding a media specialist and a librarian so that there would be somebody on site at all times who could operate the library. We haven't figured out all the details yet, but we're working on it.
Thank you very much. Access, Mr. Vincent.
Well, I guess it's the same comments. The contractors have walked the site and done some assessment, and we're looking at the costs right now. Same information. We'll hope in the next 2 to 3 weeks have all the information in with a complete cost and timeline. So.
Thank you. Could we have Andrew come down and talk about engagement efforts, please?
Good evening, Andrew Johnson, Program Admin for Talented and Gifted Education. A progress report has been sent to families and staff, just updating them where we are in the process. A planning committee has been set up with parents and staff and students. And coming up, district staff will be on hand to answer some questions that are coming up about transportation and childcare and so forth. A walkthrough through the campus for staff is scheduled for February 28th. Walkthroughs for families and students are being scheduled. Dates will be announced soon. And Human Resources representatives will also meet with staff to determine what the next steps are and to answer their questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent Lopez, if you could talk about our Head Start programs, please.
Where's Applegate going? Hi, I'm Eileen Isham, Director of Head Start.
Thank you.
We have been working with facilities regarding the 5 classrooms that we have at Applegate. We have a total of 77 children. 34 will be what we call returners because there were 3 this year. The other 54, I did my math right, will be going on to kindergarten, and we are helping those families transition both to kindergarten and to another Head Start site or a preschool site that works for them. We kept the 2 Native American culturally specific classes together by moving them both to Kelly. So there's an early Head Start that is part of Albina, and then our Head Start that's culturally specific will also move to Kelly. We've worked with facilities very closely, and we are going to move 2 classrooms into the Vestal facility. They actually have their middle school kids are moving out, so they have a lot of room for us. They are also welcoming us with open arms. We've had conversations with the Kelly principal as well. The reason we really looked at Vestal is because when we do our community needs assessment, we can tell in the city where there's lack of preschool services. The Northeast Portland is pretty saturated, and so that's kind of how we chose that, and it's going to work out. We're going to support a new playground. Hopefully we'll get some funds from facilities, and then we may have funds from Head Start that would be able to support that. We've had 1 staff meeting with Antonio. A couple letters have gone out to the community, and we've met twice with Neighborhood House, who provides the support services to the early Head Start, and to OCDC, who actually provides the funding. And they really are looking for year-round classrooms because they have the young babies all year round. And so the Kelly site, 1 had potential air conditioning that can be upgraded. So that's going to be helpful.
Babies can travel on buses? We're going to send them on a bus?
So
I would, excuse me, I
Yeah.
would just ask, I would ask the audience to allow our presenters to present, and there'll be an opportunity for public comment later this evening.
So I'd just like to respond to the transportation issue. Head Start has not provided transportation for 16 years. It's 16 years ago, it was over $300,000 to try and transport our children. So unfortunately, we do not, but we do serve 819 children currently at 9 sites. And there is a lot of parent-to-teacher interaction and engagement because they do drive them.
Yes, and I want to add for the native classrooms that are moving to Cali, we have met with Neighborhood House and with NEA a couple times, and we also had them tour different sites, and they really like Cali because of the year-round, because the wraparound services and the facilities. So just want to share that we have engaged them.
So we have 2 other classrooms that do need a home, and we are working with facilities very closely. I believe we'll have something within a few days here to nail that down. So thank you.
Thank you very much. There are human resources and communications elements. If I could invite Kylie Rogers and Harry Steve as well.
Good evening. The human resources update this evening is the focus of the district office has been the analytics team taking the district enrollment projections from PSU and using those to analyze and determine the projected enrollment at each of our schools next year. And this is a process that happens in the spring. But for the 2 new middle schools and the feeder schools, we have attempted to accelerate some of that information so that we can support the principals in beginning their staffing processes, working with employees, the principals, and our unions to identify the next steps in the process, and hope to be moving forward next week with being able to identify where staff and is coming from the feeder schools and going to the middle schools, and what the next steps are as we open up the district-wide staffing process.
Good evening. Communications' primary role has been to support the planning principals as they work to bring their communities together, which is they consider one of the most important things that they have to do in getting these two new middle schools started. We're trying to keep all the families involved informed and help make sure that all families, regardless of their background, have access to the necessary information. We provide logistics, such as meeting sites, food and childcare when it's needed, interpreters, and translated written materials. We do direct communications to specific school communities as needed, including such as emails and autodialers, again, translated as appropriate. We are also helping with the whole school branding, which you heard about just a little while ago from Natasha, working on logos and T-shirts, and again, these sorts of things are as important as many other things in helping establish the sense that we're all part of one school. You'll see those designs here soon. We're also working on websites for each school and for Rose City Park. We're now providing regular updates on the progress of the middle schools through the PPS Pulse and board meetings. And we have been working to provide more factual information to counteract some of the misinformation that's been disseminated, whether that's talking with news media or producing FAQ sheets. And our underlying goal is to make sure students, families, and staff feel informed, welcome, and engaged. We know we still have work to do on that front, and that we are making sure that we address any gaps that we have developed as we go forward.